Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our session, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So our session is called Setting Our Sights on World-Class Radiotherapy, Right Patient, Right Treatment and Right Time. My name is Sarah Quinlan and I am the Director of Radiotherapy UK. So radiotherapy really has the potential to be a game changer in cancer care, and today we want to highlight how that can be achieved. Radiotherapy is needed in half of all cancer patients and involved in 40% of cancer cures. Personalised to each patient, radiotherapy plays a crucial role across the entire cancer treatment spectrum, from early disease treatment to palliative care for pain relief. It is effective and it is incredibly cost efficient. So today's session starts with Dr. Katie Wakeham, co-author of the published report, World-Class Radiotherapy in the UK, Right Patient, Right Treatment, Right Time, which was launched in Westminster earlier this year. Then we will hear 5 insights from different perspectives within the radiotherapy community before a special Rad Chat interview with the co-founder of the Catch Up with Cancer campaign, co-founder of the Global Coalition for Radiotherapy and chair of Radiotherapy UK, Professor Pat Price. So I'm going to hand over to Katie now.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for everyone in the audience. Thank you so much for coming to listen to us today. So, as mentioned, my name is Katie Wakeham. I'm a clinical oncology consultant at Imperial Healthcare NHS Trust, and I co-authored the vision document with Tim Cooper, who is chair of the West Midlands Imaging Network, with support from Carl Rowbottom, who's here in the audience today and who you'll hear from later. So, in spring 23, the All-Party Parliamentary Advisory Group led by the MP Tim Farron, called for a vision document for radiotherapy. And this vision was designed that it should allow us to recognise and achieve the potential of radiotherapy to cure more cancer. The drivers for that were for patients to have timely access to the right radiotherapy treatment through innovation of care, and that the vision would support not only patients but also healthcare workers. It was vital that the vision represented the views of the radiotherapy community, and so we undertook an engagement process to listen to patients, frontline workforce, academics, professional organisations and experts in the field. And based on their feedback, we identified 6 key themes for the vision document. So the first was leadership, and that we would require through this vision to have a leadership group that would be accountable, strategic and independent to deliver on the vision. The second was the vision that all patients should have equitable access to radiotherapy across the UK. And we called for a very urgent need that we need to understand the very marked regional variation in the proportion of cancer patients that access radiotherapy at any part of their cancer pathway, and also to understand the access and variation to advanced technologies. Next came a workforce vision, designed to ensure that we have a sustainable, multidisciplinary workforce for the future that are equipped to embrace new technology, and that workforce also has good working conditions and development opportunities. In the vision, we describe a comprehensive data collection package and call for this to be a UK-wide national collection of data that can be analysed using nationally agreed metrics which allow us to monitor access and outcome of the radiotherapy patients. We call for comprehensively funded research that takes place in all cancer facilities, and this should include not only clinical trials, but research that understands the performance of the National Health Service. And finally, last but not least, sustainable investment and finance, which ensures that radiotherapy is sustainable and there's a high excellent standard throughout the UK. So we launched the vision in February at the House of Commons, and we would be delighted if, for those who are in the audience that haven't read the document, we have a QR code that you can download an online PDF to the document. And we also have some hard copies for those that are interested. So thank you very much for listening. And I'm going to hand over now.
And we're just going to now hear the first of our 5 insights. Thank you. Starting with Kay. Kay has lived experience of cancer diagnosis and treatment and is a really powerful patient advocate.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kende Papula, or Kay. I was diagnosed in February of 2022 with a myxoid liposarcoma, and it was on my left hip. So the course of treatment that was recommended for me was radiotherapy and surgery to remove the tumour. I've been cancer-free for almost 2 years now, and prior to obviously undergoing radiotherapy, I had to have 25 courses of it. It was a very difficult time because I've got a young child, and I just had no idea of how radiotherapy would work. I'd heard of it, but didn't have any experience of it. So sort of looking through the documentation, the literature, I had a lot of information to take in. And it was really difficult to sort of navigate it, to understand it, because a lot of the people being diagnosed they were older, they were white, and obviously I'm not that. So when I was sort of looking at how my skin would change and sort of the effects it would have on me, it just didn't resonate with me. So sort of going through it, I had a lot of questions, and there was no one to really reach out to. There was no one to talk to. There was not like a one-stop shop to sort of get sight of what I would undergo, how I might feel. While the treatment, which I had at Royal Marsden, was excellent. The care was excellent. The nurses, they were brilliant, and I felt really seen. And there were a lot of emotions sort of going through, but a lot of the questions that I had just couldn't be answered because it was just really, really blanket information. Sort of coming out the other side of it, I think what would have benefited me was sort of having more tailored information, stuff that I'd be able to access, that I wouldn't have to ask questions, because without actually being involved in radiotherapy, you just don't know where to go, you don't know who to turn to. So when I sort of think about what world-class radiotherapy looks like, it looks like a one-stop shop. It looks like access for everyone, irrespective of your age, your race, whatever your financial circumstances are. And in a situation where you're very, very unsure, you're uncertain of what's going to happen next, I think having access to that information without stressing about it, because let's be honest, when you have a cancer diagnosis, you just have so many questions. You just don't know where to go. And because the internet will tell you everything, I was a Google warrior when I got diagnosed, and even before then. So sort of having access to something like Radiotherapy UK and having that sort of one-stop shop would just be brilliant sort of going forward. That's it from me.
Are you going to introduce me, Sarah?
Yourself, Jo.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. So my name is Jo McNamara. I'm a senior lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University, and one half of my face is Rad Chat. We at Sheffield Hallam University educate 32% of the workforce of therapeutic radiographers, which is why I think Radiotherapy UK have contacted me and asked me to kind of give us a little bit of insight and maybe some suggestions from my own personal perspective, but also from the Radiotherapy World Class document. So I wanted to set the scene because some of you in the audience might be more from the diagnostic side of things, and I think it's important to maybe consider what some of the issues are that we face within oncology. We are a really small team. When you compare the number of diagnostic radiographers and radiologists in the country versus our oncology team, it is starkly different. We have about 6,400 specialists within radiotherapy. It's tiny, but we are small but mighty, and as a result of that, we do obviously provide radiotherapy to approximately 40% of all cancer patients. To do that, we need a workforce. And when I talk about the workforce, I'm talking about oncologists. I'm talking about therapeutic radiographers, dosimetrists, people who work specifically within planning, physicists and engineers, who you will hear from later. But I think it's really important that the current shortage is about 9%. So that equates to about 582 vacancies at the moment. So already very short staffed. I think for anyone in the room who is currently working clinically will feel that already. But I think also in terms of kind of the multidisciplinary team working that we have, there are slight variances within it, but we all have the same issues. And actually some of the solutions are quite similar as well. Recruitment is challenging. So when you look at recruitment across all of those different disciplines, they vary very significantly. We're unheard of. Radiotherapy isn't spoken so much about. When we talk to patients through our RadChat advocacy work, typically patients say, I've maybe heard of it, but I'm not really sure what it is. Or they may say, I think I know what it is, but actually when I've asked a nurse or someone along my pathway, they say, wait till you get to radiotherapy and they'll explain it. And that's because there is a generalised lack of knowledge about what radiotherapy is. And I think that's evident from Kay's talk. We need to advocate for ourselves. We need to be able to share as much as we possibly can, specifically to talk about how can we raise the profile of our own professions. Outreach is absolutely important and crucial, and when we speak to IPEM, RCR, Society College of Radiographers, there is work going on, but actually we also need to do simplistic things. And when I talk about things like that, and I know that I am renowned for this, but if you are a therapeutic radiographer, you need to tell your patients you are a therapeutic radiographer. It's such a simple task, but actually by doing that, patients will go for their radiotherapy. They will hear that someone is a therapeutic radiographer, go home and share their experiences with their family and friends and say, I had, hopefully, a lovely therapeutic radiographer treat me today. That is advocating for our workforce. How many times do we hear patients talking about us as a profession and referring to us as nurses? Like, don't get me wrong, I love my nursing colleagues, but I want to make sure that when we are talking about our professions, we are spreading the word. And it seems really simplistic, but it is really important. We've had, through some of the work we've done with RadChat, some radiotherapy engineers come on the podcast, and they were talking specifically about how they do outreach work. Are departments supporting our staff in doing this outreach? When you have a patient open evening, is it just front-facing therapeutic radiographers that are there? Typically, yes. Where are the oncologists? Don't get me wrong, I know they are tired, as with all the others, but actually having them in the room and promoting their own roles is really important as well. If you can't do that, is it potential where we maybe support and advocate for each other? I know when I do outreach work, I always talk about diagnostic because that's usually the audience and what they're there for. And then I say, have you ever considered therapeutic radiography? And usually they go, oh, I've never heard of that. But that's a really good way to kind of really think about how we could potentially raise our profile. Also, when we think about the workforce, we need to consider attrition. So quite often we look at recruitment statistics, and I know the Society College of Radiographers has done some amazing work looking at some of those stats. However, just knowing the recruitment from lots of different educational pathways does not give a true reflection of what's actually happening with attrition. And I can certainly tell you as a lecturer that unfortunately, even though our recruitment looks buoyant, that is not reflective of how many people are actually within the workforce. And also thinking about what happens when they qualify. So we know that when people qualify as therapeutic radiographers, unfortunately, because of their experiences or because of their inspiration, their aspirations, they might go into other fields of work. So we know that graduates qualifying this year are going to work in PET, they're going to work in mammography, they're going to work straight into dosimetry. They're actually choosing to leave the profession altogether. Like, I've got my colleagues here from Sheffield Hallam, and I can tell you as lecturers, there's nothing worse than seeing your 3 years of hard work going, yeah, I'm not going to be a therapeutic radiographer. I'm going to go and work in Aldi because I get more money. Like, it's soul destroying, but it's a realistic point of view that we're seeing within the profession. Now, I don't want to necessarily just do it's all a gloom picture. We know about some of the things that we're coming to face in terms of trying to actually address some of these issues. However, I think we need to be much more proactive in what are we going to do to create these solutions. And definitely in the document that Radiotherapy UK have produced, there are some suggestions. I think creating healthy cultures is really important. We need to look after each other. You know, we need to ask each other, how are we doing? And not just as a, are you all right? Actually, you really need to listen to each other. And if people aren't coping very well, what can you do to support them? Thinking about kind of maybe career progression and thinking about what aspirations do people have. We know that with workforce shortages, we're really limited specifically to what some of the kind of profile of your career looks like. How can we drive that forward? How can we create opportunities for staff? We're thinking as well about retention strategies. What's in place specifically for people to ensure that they want to stay working within the NHS as an engineer, as a dosimetrist, as a therapeutic radiographer? And I think lastly, anyone who's got any money, think about donating to Radiotherapy UK to get us an advert. World Cup, absolutely, we need to be on an advert in the middle and promote all of those amazing professions in radiotherapy. I've been told to get off. Right, thank you very much.
I'm the lucky person who gets to follow that. So my name's Carl Rowbottom. I'm a physicist working here in Liverpool, and I'm not going to tell you anything about physicists, which is a bit of a shame, isn't it? But so one of the main things that physicists do is they work on new developments and new technology in radiotherapy to improve outcomes. So I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about what's the landscape for introducing new technology and how's it changed over the last 10 years. So this is a statement from a report that was published by the Department of Health back in 2012, looking at the state of radiotherapy services in England. And it quite rightly identified that we need to make sure that we invest in new technology and train staff to use it. Unfortunately, the reality has been we haven't really invested very much in radiotherapy technology or staffing to use it. And so I wanted to look at why is that and try and think of a couple of examples to kind of highlight some of the issues. An example of a technology that's developed a lot in the last 10 years is surface-guided radiotherapy. And you can see here on this photo, you can see 3 camera systems mounted into the ceiling. It provides a system of monitoring the patient during their radiotherapy treatment given by this machine. And I've listed a number of patient benefits and staff benefits from this technology. So let's think about how we're using this as a community. Well, if we look on the Safer Radiation Therapy website, there's about 50% of centres have currently got this technology. Well, why is that? Why haven't all centres got it? We've estimated that it costs less than £50 per patient to use this technology, but only half of the centres can actually use it currently. Well, maybe that's partly to do with how radiotherapy is funded, particularly in England. So radiotherapy is funded through a very structured and rigid system of tariff. So this is the tariff table from 2014-15. It was the first tariff that was published. It was based on work that was originally started in 2009-2010, looking at the reference costs for radiotherapy. Now, I'm not going to go into lots of detail of what this tariff is. All I want you to really bear in mind is this was the first attempt in England of having a structured tariff system, so providers knew what they were going to be paid for and what that income was going to look like. This is the same tariff table. The last time it was formally published was in 2022-23. Now, if you look at this table, can you see all of the developments that happened in the last 10 years? All the things that we can now apply for tariff for that weren't there 10 years ago? Well, no, neither can I, because the tariff has stayed exactly the same as it was when it was first published. And that means you'll notice that there is no tariff for surface-guided radiotherapy. So centres are then it's a clear barrier to them in implementing it. So they're having to then look at things like charity funding and other opportunities, rather than it actually just being part of the tariff. Radiotherapy's moved on. So A counter-argument is, well, you could use whatever income you receive from radiotherapy and you can choose to invest it however you'd like. So I thought, well, let's have a look at that for an example. So this is an example of a head and neck patient receiving radiotherapy. And I just looked at the tariff from 2014-15 and then looked what it was in 22-23. Amazingly, over those 8 years, the tariff went down. So when we look at it, for a course of treatment, we were receiving around £6,500 in April 2013 through to 2014. By March 2023, we were actually receiving less money. We were receiving £6,156 for the same treatment. So inflation didn't exist in radiotherapy. If we'd have just increased that by inflation using the Bank of England inflation calculator, we should have been receiving £8,700. And had we been receiving that money, maybe we could have invested in new technology or more staffing and training for staffing. But that lack of a structured tariff that develops with radiotherapy and the tariff increasing in line with inflation is a definite barrier to what we're trying to achieve in the UK. And thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Anthony Stanton. I'm a radiotherapy engineer working at the Clatterbridge Cancer Centre. I've worked in radiotherapy engineering since 2005 at both Clatterbridge and the Christie. So just going to explain today a little bit about who we are and what we do, because we don't often get publicised very much. I've just put a few little pictures up just to see, let you see really the kind of things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So our job is chiefly repair and maintenance of this equipment used in radiotherapy. As you can see, it's highly sophisticated equipment, and you need a lot of specialist skills, a diverse range of odd skills really, that you probably won't find it in many other professions. The machines themselves, just a little bit of information, which some of you may already know, but they cost millions of pounds. They have approximately 10-year lifespan. At Clatterbridge, we have 10 Linacs overall, 9 of them are NHS, one of them private. We do have other equipment we look after, chiefly the proton therapy machine that we have at Clatterbridge. So really, one of the key points that I wanted to make is that regardless of anything else that's going on with radiotherapy, if these machines aren't running, the patient doesn't get treated. So that's how crucial, really, the engineers are to keeping the service running and keeping the throughput. I'm led to believe that, on average, our equipment is designed to deliver maybe treat 37 to 38 patients a day over a 10-hour day. Quite often these days we seem to end up going even more than that. So there's becoming, for us at least, less room for manoeuvre, less room for error in our job. To keep the equipment running, I think we need to have, it's the right skills in the right place at the right time. So when the machine breaks down, and we've got someone there that's competent to fix it quickly. In the UK, traditionally, we have on-site engineers backed up by manufacturers' contracts for most centres that I know of. In Clatterbridge, we've got about 14 engineers and 2 apprentices, covering 3 sites, 2 shifts, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m, Monday to Friday, and we also need to do weekends and bank holidays to get everything done. We're very tight with physics of radiotherapy to try and minimise the machine downtime, but we also work with other stakeholders, IT, estates. Quite often we're an essential cog in the machine, and our technical expertise allow us to act as a bit of a glue sometimes between the different groups. A key issue I think facing engineering is as previously mentioned, recruitment, retention, i.e. the overall numbers of engineers, and also the quality of the engineers that we get into the profession to support the future expansion of radiotherapy. A known issue in the profession is we do have an ageing workforce, not as much younger people coming through. Could be a bit of a cliff edge for us in the way the NHS quite often doesn't recruit until people retire, and there's a severe lack of structured training programmes delivered within individual centres at the moment, although a lot of good progress in that area has been made. So to address the training aspect, personally, again, I think it's something we need to look at. If there was no barriers and we had as much money as we wanted, you know, I'd say it'd be nice to have like a national training centre where we had all the equipment available to train engineers up before they even get onto the job, and they can have ongoing training as they go through the careers and they feel they need more. At the moment, a lot of the stuff is mainly done on the job and via manufacturers' training courses. Practically, I think what we are trying to do at the moment, certainly within our ODN, is we're trying to speak with each other a lot more. For our ODN, it's the Christie, Clatterbridge and Preston, to try and coordinate some of our in-house training and share expertise and opportunities. That's particularly with our apprenticeships. We're going to do an apprenticeship exchange soon, so the apprentices can go and visit the various sites. We're hoping to leverage any training opportunities that come up. They could take advantage of that. But eventually, if we could have some sort of structured training process across the country to fill the new posts that might become available when we inevitably eventually begin to lose these long-serving, highly skilled and highly valued engineers. To come back to the right skills in the right place at the right time, if we recruit somebody new, we can get them on that particular shift at the right time when the machine breaks down. But if they haven't got the right skills, then the machines, you're in a no-treat situation then. Whatever patients are left, best efforts, if they can't work safely, they don't have the answers, the skills, the training, the machine's off until somebody arrives that can safely resolve that situation. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I hope that's given a bit of an insight into engineering for some people and what it is means to radiotherapy. Yeah, that's practically all I wanted to say. The only last thing I wanted to say is there doesn't appear to be much firm data in my speech here, but Mike Kirby has put together some research recently, which you'll probably see getting published quite soon, which has gathered a lot of data on the UK engineering workforce. So I think just look out for that, because it's really interesting project. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Anthony. My name is Darian Laird, and I am the Executive Director of the Global Coalition for Radiotherapy, and I am very pleased to be invited to share some insights on radiotherapy on the global scale. I'm going to start for you with a map, and it is quite a disappointing map. You can see these dark spots that are essentially deserts where radiotherapy access on a global scale is not available for patients around the world. And a very small quote that you cannot read, so I'll read it to you. It says, "The chance for a cure, the chance to live, should no longer remain an accident of geography." And I know, as was mentioned earlier, Radiotherapy UK is working to provide access in the UK, but this is obviously a global problem, making sure that that patients have the treatment once they are diagnosed. Which is essentially a great opportunity for us to be presenting at this meeting on imaging, that we can work together to bring diagnosis to the rest of the cancer continuum, the treatment as well. I loved what Kay had to say about providing a one-stop shop for patients, and I think that the radiotherapy community shows that and proves that there is an opportunity for this coordinated workforce to come together with patients in mind. And as Anthony mentioned, every part of that workforce is crucial to making sure that treatment is delivered on time and is accessible to the patients in need. I just wanted to share a bit about why there's a need for global collaboration, and this really comes from this idea that, of course, as we saw from the map, access is needed around the world, but there's an opportunity, especially bringing medtech technologies together, imaging and radiotherapy, to provide it in a very innovative way. It's a pleasure for us to be here attending, just because this idea has really been a big part of the conversation from the Global Coalition for Radiotherapy, that if we're able to partner with leading medtech companies, we can bring the workforce together to integrate state-of-the-art diagnosis and radiotherapy solutions. We also are in the age of precision medicine, and this, in terms of accessing the innovation in radiation delivery systems and imaging technologies, we're going to be able to provide better treatment for precise tumor targeting and minimal collateral damage. We also are positioned right now to leverage data and AI for remote treatment, remote planning, and improving our access with this disruptive technology. And finally, it's an opportunity for us to enhance connectivity to streamline workflow and improve patient outcomes across the entire cancer ecosystem. We've been working within the GCR on radiotherapy essential standards. So for the past year, we've brought all pieces of the workforce together, including patient advocacy organizations, Patients at Mind, as well as different medtech organizations around the world, to talk about what is essential for having radiotherapy in your cancer control plans. Because as you saw on that map, radiotherapy is not even mentioned in most cancer control plans around the world. Almost 40 countries do not have access. So this work has been focusing on providing understanding of how we can have quality and safety standards, maintenance and service standards, advocacy, data and monitoring standards, and bringing people together to decide what those are with all of the many resources that are out there, and making it simple and accessible to countries that are starting from ground zero at some point. Through this process, we've actually been approached by the medical imaging community because there are so many similarities, as Joe mentioned, right? That there are similar issues and similar solutions, and we can work together to provide greater access. This is an opportunity for us to build better together, and we love this catchphrase at the Global Coalition for Radiotherapy, because as we're working together, we can improve the lives of patients and the outcomes for those who are needing access to radiotherapy. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Darian, and to Kay and Joe and Carl and Anthony. That was fascinating insights. Now I'd like to invite up Naman Dulka Anderson and Joe McNamara, who are going to be interviewing our internationally renowned clinical oncologist and radiotherapy advocate, Professor Pat Price. Can I just note we are going to have a panel after this as well, so we'll bring everybody back up and there will be an opportunity to ask the panel questions. Thank you.
It's advertised as fireside. What they can't see is the fire that's billowing on the screen. So, Pat, you've got a very nice fancy title. What does it actually mean? What do you do?
What do I do? I often ask myself that. Well, I suppose I'm very old. I started way back when we hand planned in our FRCR exam. So I've seen really, as an academic, I've seen and a clinician, I've seen radiotherapy really progress through, astonishing. And I suppose I've just got very frustrated with how we're not embracing this as much as we should. And so that's why I set up, which is first the ACORN, then it was Action Radiotherapy, and now the charity, and then the Global Coalition. And then in COVID, obviously, we had the problems, and then we needed to set up the Catch Up with Cancer campaign. But I'm just passionate about, if you have the knowledge of radiotherapy, why aren't patients getting radiotherapy when they need it, and the best radiotherapy that's possible, because it's amazing. And I think it's really, as you pointed out, it's lack of knowledge, isn't it? It's just nobody gets it. It's interesting because when we've supported the APPG for radiotherapy, some of you may have seen the sort of work we've tried to be doing with the government and with the media. The day Matt Hancock said the word radiotherapy as opposed to radiology was a big moment. And Sunak, last time, he actually mixed it up. So just to get the message through about radiotherapy is so important. And I think it's really, we owe it to our patients, and I think we have to take the responsibility for doing that.
Social media went mad that day, didn't it?
So, yes, exactly.
What needs to change?
Oh gosh, what needs to change? So much needs to change. I think the vision document you and others and Katie did is absolutely amazing. And I think we know what to do, don't we? You know, we know what to do. It's all there. It can be done. Now, why isn't it being done? Big question, and what needs to change? Number one, we've got to get cancer up the back at the top of the priorities. In Mike Richards' day, when we had a cancer plan, we had a cancer czar reporting to the Prime Minister. It was number one, okay, from the 1999 Downing Street session. Now it's ambulances, it's A&E. I get all that. I absolutely get all that. But we've got to get cancer back up there. I think the current state of the NHS, it is not suitably managed to actually get radiotherapy when it needs to be. Take, for an example, Carl's very important issue about the tariff. What is that? It's a complete nonsense. You know, if you knew what you would do, you wouldn't do this. And in fact, we talked to the NHS England saying, why aren't you doing this? And now it's devolved down to the ICBs. So they're in charge of radiotherapy. Again, who's in charge? They're in charge of radiotherapy. So we do a freedom of information to the ICBs. Who's your person in charge of radiotherapy? 70% didn't have anybody in charge of radiotherapy. So nobody's in charge of radiotherapy. So that needs to change. So I think it's not being managed properly. And why is it not being managed properly? Partly because of the structures of the NHS are not good at medtech and radiotherapy and that sort of thing. And I think they're not listening, really. And so it's our job is to make them listen. We've had really good support from MPs, from the media. You know, Daily Express are running a whole campaign on radiotherapy. Fantastic. But there's so much that needs to get right. And I think we've just not got to stop until it is right with some very clear messaging.
Pat, for anyone who's in the audience who thinks, well, you know, there's Professor Pat Price, she's talking to journalists, she's on the TV, I am just a therapeutic radiographer and I am doing my work every day. How can I make a difference?
You can make a massive difference, you know. Okay, I have to do that sort of stuff. Not that I like it. I remember when I did my first media, but 3 years ago, I remember doing it. I used to say, I'd rather give birth to my children than do live TV. Yes. I kind of a bit better about it now, a bit calmer about it. But it's you know, somebody has to do it. If anybody else wants to do it instead, please, you know. Absolutely. No, I think everybody's got to play their part. It's, as you said, it's right down from, I'm a therapeutic radiographer. That's a start. Telling people, enthusing people. You know, for recruitment, people don't wake up saying, you know, I want to be a therapeutic radiographer, don't know what one is. So everybody in every way can show what it is and advocate for the subject, from engineering, enthusing about that, all they are. But we've got to get it out of ourselves, you know, because if we talk to each other, yes, all 6,400 of us treating 100,000 patients a year, We need to get it to the next layer out. So I think there's all sorts of things you can do. You can actually sign the Catch Up with Cancer campaign. It's change.org. That's where 650,000 do that. We often have messaging out there. Write to your MP. There's things on the Radiotherapy UK website. Ask Radiotherapy what you can do. Run the miles for radiotherapy. We need more not.
Or walk it.
Or walk it, crawl it, lie around, whatever you want to do. Push the pram, whatever you want to do. And I think everybody can do their bit. But I think it's really important that we act together, which is why, because you can see here, it's everything. It's patients, engineers, physicists, radiographers, clinicians, technology, all our industry partners. And that's why in Radiotherapy UK, we want to bring all that together because we've got to work as a team. The industry task force we've worked, which have been brilliant. It's people and tech. So if we all work together, then we can speak out with one voice and really exemplify it. So anything, even straightforward things, retweeting social media, all the things we do, get involved. You can all make a difference every single day. All you have to do is say it to one person who might then tell their MP, who might be best friends with the next health secretary, and we can make a real big difference.
If only it was that easy, Pat.
But we keep trying.
We're in the right circles here.
You never know. Yes.
And all of that is really accessible from the Radiotherapy UK website, isn't it? So if anyone wants a template letter to send to their MP,
absolutely
it's really
right.
accessible.
And remember what you two guys do on Rad Chat is so important. Get that out there, get the word out, get everybody saying radiotherapy. I do think we have made progress. People do say radiotherapy now. Liberal Democrat manifesto today, first time ever mentions the word radiotherapy. Yay! Everybody go out and social media that till the towels come home and just say radiotherapy. Just partly, I must say, very interesting. Talk to the MPs. How do you make an influence? What they say? Go to the media. I thought, that's a very odd way of doing it. Go to the media, they say, we want simple messages. So I think just say, radiotherapy is wonderful. That would be a start. Yes.
What makes you so passionate about your advocacy work? Because you do a lot, and obviously just the amount that you've set up is pretty impressive. What drives you? Perhaps
madness. No, I think what drives me is I get quite angry. Actually, and I think it's an outlet for that because I think as a clinician, I was Marsden trained, I'm an ordinary clinician, and I think number one, you really feel for cancer patients and because they've got such a difficult time anyway, and you want to help them, and then you see such a fantastic technology. And it's just not being, and what it can do for patients and what it can even do for the future. It can cure patients. It can make them live great lives. And you just feel that responsibility. And I just get very angry. And also, tech is wonderful. You think how fast we've gone on. You think you can get your mobile phone now and plan somebody in India or something like that. Amazing. And yet 38 countries in the world don't have access to radiotherapy. That is absolutely rubbish. They've got access to mobile phones a lot of the places. So why can't they have access to other technology? So I get angry.
I think one other bit is that patients are avoiding radical treatment because of the delays. So people are actively saying, I'll just go for palliative because I don't want to travel as far to go somewhere else for treatment.
And I think that's about us giving access closer and thinking for the future. Part of the vision is what should we be in the UK over the next 10 years? There's going to be a 30% increase in cancer cases. So it's coming down the road. They're going to need some radiotherapy. How are we going to do that? Where's that vision to what it's going to be? And people shouldn't not have curative treatment because they live too far away. Something like that, something basic. We should be really helping these people. But we've got to be at the table making those decisions. And because at the moment, I can't see anybody in charge of radiotherapy in the UK.
Do you think you should have that job?
No.
Just about to say that.
No.
Are you creating a job description?
No. I think, as Katie said, it's got to be a whole team. And I think that is the whole point. But we've got to, I'm quite happy to bang on about it if that's my bit. But it's really got, because it is simple. That's not rocket science. You think how little radiotherapy costs, even if it's £8,000. Well, why haven't we got that? If a new immunotherapy came along with £50,000, what is that? You know, and I think then, of course, you know, the machine manufacturers, they haven't got the money to advertise. You think these big pharma, they've got money in their marketing budgets more than the cost of machines, for goodness sake. Even somebody says, oh, a machine's £2 million. Oh, it's a lot of money. That works out at £400 a patient. That works out at £250,000 every year to treat 700 patients. If you had a drug that was only £250,000 to treat 700 patients, you'd be buying shares in that immediately. This is nonsense. So we must keep saying this all the time and be absolutely clear about it, because it makes so much sense. And I really think the next administration have to really think about this makes sense. I think we are making progress. I think the Department of Health are listening, and we've just got to get a system where radiotherapy can break through and just get on with it.
So, Pat, we always finish our podcast episodes with top tips.
Top tips. Ooh.
So for everyone in the audience, what top tips would you give them to try and help raise the profile of radiotherapy?
Speak about it all the time. Social media about everything you can get hold of. Get in contact with Radiotherapy UK. See what you can do. And actually, join Miles for Radiotherapy. Just get out there and do as much as you can. And in your local hospitals, keep talking about it. Don't accept that you're all very busy in the basement treating patients. No, get there, pushy, keep up to the top table. Make yourself be unpopular if you need to be, but get it there. We've got to fight for our patients, and also we've got to fight for our workforce as well. That's enough top tips.
Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Pat and Joe, I might bring you back up again. We're just going to set up a short panel for everybody. So we'll bring up all the speakers, please.
Okay. Oh, I knew you'd hide in the corner.
Great, thank you very much. So, open to questions from the audience. We do have a roving mic coming through. So, do we have any questions either for all members of the panel, or if you'd like to ask somebody one question, that will work too. No problem. I'll start off. Oh, we do have somebody. Yay.
We need one of those ball mics, Sarah, you know, we can chuck them up.
Yeah, next time. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. You guys were talking about workforce attrition and recruitment and retention and that sort of thing. Where does the panel see the role of trade unions and workplace organisation in all of that?
Maybe Joe, do you want to kick off with that?
I think it's really important, and I think it's something that we should be engaging with. I think it's really hard because obviously with the strikes, we know that impacts on patients. And I definitely saw, and this is from my own personal experience, diagnostic radiographers maybe went on strike more than therapeutic radiographers. And I think that was as a result of the fact that we treating day in, day out, being with our patients, you knew that you having a strike day would impact on those patients and they would not receive treatment. So I think it is very difficult, but I think we have to engage. And like Pat said, you know, we have to do something, because if we just sit and not necessarily advocate for ourselves and the workforce, then nothing will change, because the government will just go with those that are making the loudest noise, which obviously we've seen with the Royal College of Nursing. In terms of, you know, they've got a big demographic of people, they're making a lot of noise, and that's where things might change for them specifically. So I think it is really important, and obviously being a member of Society College of Radiographers, ARSIA, I think it gives you support to do some of that advocacy work for yourself.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to add to that or respond to it?
No.
Did we have another question there? Yeah, go ahead, please. Just down here on the... Oh, sorry, it's this lady here.
Sorry.
Hi, thank you. So with one of my other hats on, I'm a trustee at a charity, and we get quite a few requests for equipment that should be funded by, the NHS funds, and we are having to say no an awful lot to those requests. What would you say to the staff or to department managers? How can they, get that pushback and be getting those messages across and requesting those funds and not having to access something, charitable funds? Sorry.
I don't mind saying something. Always got something to say. I would say that it is really difficult. So I know lots of radiotherapy departments in the country that are actively raising money for an MR Linac. Like, this is crazy. This is absolutely advancements in technology and software that are going to revolutionise radiotherapy treatments for patients. And for the staff to have to spend their lunch hours cycling to raise money is just beyond crazy. I think we have to support patients in actually, you need to help us by raising the profile with MPs. And I know that's very difficult because you're in a treatment setting, they're going through cancer diagnosis. Do you want someone to be talking about, can you please write to your MP? It's not something that you would have that active conversation, but could we put posters up in waiting areas? When we're talking to patients about I'm so sorry you've had a long wait today, the reason is staffing. The reason is we had a machine breakdown and we're waiting for the engineers, and unfortunately, because of the work, it's little things like that that potentially might help the general public and our patients see maybe some of the issues we're facing. And I think generally we see that through the public eye in terms of media and talking about lack of resources, lack of funding within the NHS. But I think we need to be more specific and say, if you'd like to write to your MP.
And I think I'd say also that one of the most effective political things is writing to MPs. If MPs basically, they've got their SPADs doing and all this, the number of letters they get to the point where they say, right, this is an issue, we have to do something about it. And they always sort of want it to stop, as it were. There's all these things. So it's really effective. As trustees, you could do that as well. Why am I having to raise money for this when the NHS should be doing it? And, mention the word radiotherapy. On the website, there's an easy, you can look up your own MP, just put in the address and it will give your MP. We've got templates that you can, write to them. And I think people should do it. The more they get, the more they will do. Just bombard them. And especially now, with an election, there'll be new MPs. Get in there first, get through them. And they'll say, radiotherapy is apparently a big issue. Get in there.
Question here and then here.
I was just going to, if you don't mind, if I say something as well, and then Carl has something to add. Just from the global perspective, that is constantly what we're trying to do, is understand how to better speak to government officials, whether it's the Minister of Finance, Minister of Health, to make them know what is radiotherapy, what are the needs of the patients. And I think, as Pat mentioned, it's just having that conversation over and over and over again. Because yes, we can put it on the workforce, we can put it on the patients, but at the end of the day, we just need to educate the people who are going to be the decision makers and bring that money into the centers.
So it's a similar point, I think, but I think there's a role there, professional bodies and the community, to say what is standard of care.
Yeah.
So often what we get is, at the moment, NHS England decide what's standard of care and then tell you whether they'll pay for it or not. Well,
why is that right?
Poacher at the same time, aren't you? It's like
marking your own homework. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we should be able to say, this is the standard of care that we expect, and that's what's happening in other fields, and then it magically gets funded. And I think we're a bit too quiet to say, oh, well, yeah, we're not going to get this technology, or we're not going to get that technology. If 50% of centres have got surface-guided radiotherapy, is it not just become standard of care?
I think that's a really good point, and I don't think our surgeons would be putting up with this, would they? But I think as a group, oncologists are really very, we're all very, trying to do the best or whatever. That doesn't necessarily translate into saying, this has to happen now. And I think that's right. And I think also we just have to be careful. It's not okay for we need to say it, in NHS England, it's not okay to then fund. It becomes a money thing. And also, as you will see a video on the website, easily push back now. Oh, treatment's holding up, because from the 31 days to intention to treat to treatment is not too bad. The fact that they move this time point, intention to treat, from the MDT to the consent which may be 12 weeks up to, we've heard. This is how you can actually say that the pushback is. So we've just got to say, this is not okay, and there is better. If patients knew what the technology they could have, if it was funded by perhaps £1,000 more or something, they would be an absolute riot out there. We've got to get this through. As I say, if you need immunotherapy for 50,000 to give you an extra 6 months, that's okay. So why is it not okay for radiotherapy curative?
Great talk. I have a question about workforce. So I feel like we're in a bit of a vicious cycle. I see it a lot in my region at the moment where I'm having conversations with hospitals and ICBs and things about how do we get therapeutic radiography out there, where actually my course is oversubscribed. I cannot get enough placements to get students out there, and we're having a really great success with the students we have. Obviously have a great experience and they stay in the region, so the hospitals benefit from it, but there's just no capacity. And I hear from my clinical colleagues about the fact that there's the undergrad students, there's the apprenticeship band 5, apprenticeship band 4, we've got other professionals coming in to get experience, we're trying to get work experience people in, all sorts of things. I feel like we're hitting like a bottleneck where it's kind of like, well, I feel like we're doing our end of the bargain to get people in, but I don't know what the answer to that is, because I don't think it's anyone's fault. There's just not kind of the infrastructure there. So I don't know if there's any thoughts on what that could look like. I appreciate that's not the case in every region, but we're really feeling that at the moment where a lot of our efforts feel quite fruitless because of that.
Send them to the other HEIs that are struggling to recruit.
I won't tell my boss I'll do that.
Yeah, maybe not. But yeah, it could be a case that maybe we need to think about kind of, rather than just focusing on regions, that we do look at a more national picture around all of the kind of training schemes. I think it is important that there are lots of different routes into professions, but I also think that we need to be mindful that if our workforce colleagues who are working clinically are already burnt out because of just the sheer number of patients that they're treating, and then we obviously are then asking them to support students who, for anyone who is in clinical supporting students, the demographic of students has definitely changed. There are generational shifts that we have to kind of support differently to how we have done in previous years, because I'm that old. But I think actually from that perspective, we need to be mindful of how we can support not only our students, but also our workforce. And is that about investment in giving us more academics to be that link? We used to have an amazing model at Sheffield Hallam University called a PDF role, where you essentially had an academic in clinical 1 day a week supporting students. Like, it worked brilliantly and they pulled the funding for it. And yet, actually, that would work really well across all the different professions.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other engineers in the room at all, but we have massive issues trying to train people up because the pressure is more towards getting patients treated. So our training tends to have to be done out of hours, and we're already sort of overstretched. So it's not the case in all centres, but I think maybe the bigger centres, certainly we don't have service efficiency machines at Clatterbridge. So any work that goes on is downtime and patient slots missed. So we also struggle massively training. We did hope to, at Clatterbridge, try and utilise one of the old Linux that were going out of service to maybe use as a training machine for a bit, but that's not really happened so far. But it's something, I don't know. Could we use old equipment rather than scrapping it? It is the space to keep some of that. Not everybody's got spare bunkers, but there certainly are at Clatterbridge. It could be another training resource. Just something to think about as an idea for people.
Okay, I think we've got time for one or two more questions if we just move quickly.
There's one over here as well. There's one over here.
Okay.
This gentleman's been waiting patiently. Yes.
A quick comment and question. A comment for Kay first. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. It's the most valuable angle of all, and we need more of it, so thank you. Next one was the question. Every single person I know who works in this game is passionate about it. I don't know anyone that goes, oh yeah, radiotherapy's all right. We're banging down the door, we're all over social media, we've got podcasts. Why isn't it working? Why isn't it broke through? Everyone I know is shouting from the rooftops about it. Why are we the only people that care about this?
I think we are making progress. I think there's still a lot of ignorance and there's a lot of pushback from people that don't want our voice to be heard. So we've just got to keep on, and we've got to keep on. But gosh, we are making progress. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you. I happen to come from the other side of the world, where getting radiotherapy becomes a privilege rather than a right. And I feel that sometimes as the workforce, we are the administrators, like when the people who could influence the policies come, they never go through the normal ways other patients go through, where they have to wait for 3 months to see an oncologist. For them, they come in today, tomorrow, almost they're receiving the treatment. So how will they know the pain that the normal patients go through? I don't know how it is this side, but that other side, I feel it is the reason why radiotherapy is a little not hard.
Darian?
This is absolutely the reason that we need groups to come together, like the GCR, working with industry and working with the workforce so that we can advocate for that, because you're right. It is the first people who are at those high decision-making levels will be the first people to be treated. And otherwise, people will say, oh, I don't have the money or the resources to go to the next country over to get radiotherapy treatment, right? I mean, that's a huge disparity that obviously in the UK, I come originally from the US, this is not something that we're seeing there. And that is why it is so important. I mean, the banging on the door and continuing to do that over and over and over again, because there are patients who are never going to get the treatment in those areas. And I think we have an opportunity, like Pat said, we have an opportunity to build together. I mean, it's a great opportunity that radiotherapy and medical imaging were at this conference together to say, no, we want better diagnosis for our patients. We want better access to the treatment for our patients. And we can include all of the surgeons and the pharmaceutical as well to say we want access on all levels, the entire ecosystem of the cancer care for these patients who can't necessarily advocate for themselves.
And I think one thing I've learned is that we now have to make the economic case more. I think COVID did teach us that health is economics. And I think if you have low and middle income countries with even more disparity, that brings all sorts of problems in terms of economy, in terms of migration, all these sorts of things. And I think a lot more, we were at the World Health Assembly the other day, I think there's a lot more thinking about you've got to make it to the finance ministers that actually saving people's lives with cancer makes them economically viable. This is good for the health of the country. Worse disparity when in lower middle income countries, cancer rates are increasing as well. And I know HPV vaccine will be great and everything, but there's patients now. So I think making the case financially as well, but certainly talk to Darian afterwards, come and share your experience with the global. We need people to give us examples and work out there. Thank you.
I think we've got time for a last question. I think there's been waiting over here for a while. And anybody who hasn't had a chance to ask questions, I'm sure the panel, we're happy to stay and take any other questions after the end of the session.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you to all the speakers. I think there's quite a bleak picture being painted. I think the vision document was fantastic because that gives us real hope. It shows how it could and perhaps should be. My heart dropped a little bit again. Then we said, Pat, you said no one's in charge of radiotherapy in the UK. And then Carl said it's a tariff that's outdated, not fit for purpose. I'm just wondering, is that a real opportunity for us as a radiotherapy community to take charge, to look at what a tariff should and could look like?
Exactly, exactly. I think we say it, we do it, and we tell them what's right. To be honest, the politicians and everybody, they're looking for solutions. We really want to move now. We've said all this stuff. We need solutions. I think if industry and people like yourselves, if we could present these solutions, and then we say, if you do it like this, in all sorts of levels, like with allied health, but I think we need a bigger conversation. So, sorry, Katie, I think we need, after the vision document, we now need these solutions, absolutely, in that way. If you could get the tariff right, they'd listen. To be honest, they would. Good point.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I think we'll end it on that note. And can I just say that there are little cards in your thing which also have on your seats, which have QR codes for many of the things we've talked about here today. There's the Radiotherapy Vision is on that, Miles for Radiotherapy, the Catch Up with Cancer campaign, and our website as well, and different ways that you can get involved with the work of the charity. So thank you so much. And please do remember this Radiotherapy Vision document, it is a living document. It's not something that we're going to do and have been involved in and will sit on a shelf. We're going to review it every year. We're going to add to it every year, because every year radiotherapy innovates and develops, and we need to have a document and a report that reflects that as well. And our aim is obviously to improve things for cancer patients. That's what this is all about. It's about making things better so that cancer patients can live longer and live better. So thank you so much. If you would like to support our work, we do have a QR code up there and we greatly appreciate it. We're a tiny charity and we're taking on a big, big battle. Thank you.